The humanism of ethical culture is a humanism that focuses on human solutions to human problems. We believe in the human worth of every person and in the power of human connection. Sometimes that means that we focus on our interpersonal lives and relationships. And sometimes that means focusing on social change. And sometimes being part of social change is itself part of our personal growth and learning. I was reminded in thinking about today's talk of a poem written by W.B. Du Bois after his emigration to Ghana late in life. Just one small part of that poem goes: Ghana shows its might and power, not in its color nor its flower, but in its wondrous breath of soul, the joy of life, its selfless role of giving. Our speaker today, Yvonne Stennicke Larsen, embodies this kind of humanism. Her own journey to becoming a volunteer with the Humanist Service Corps, and then later even more involved, so that she's leading projects in different parts of Ghana, is a fascinating journey. She's going to talk to us today both about her journey and I hope some too about the work that she is doing to support vulnerable women in Ghana.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity to talk about my work today. My name is Yvonne Stennicke Larsen. I come from Ghana and have worked in the humanitarian sector for the past 7 years. Ever since I got into nonprofit work, my dream has always been to set up my own NGO in Ghana that is guided by humanist values and that will be run or led by Ghanaians. With a lot of hard work and dedication, that dream has finally come true. And the Humanist Action Ghana nonprofit organization is still growing every single day to be better and to keep putting the needs of those it seeks to help first. I'm here today to share with you what we've been up to in the past few years and the very important project we are currently undertaking in the northern region of Ghana. To do this, and to give you a better understanding of why this program is not just very important but also instrumental to bringing huge long term impacts to women living in this region of the country, I must first take you back with me to my childhood and the events that occurred in my life that directly or indirectly brought me here today. I grew up in the southern parts of Ghana. Growing up, my family moved around a lot because of my father's job, but we never left the southern parts of the country. I grew up in a devout Christian home, and my mother was and still is extremely religious, so we all went to church every single Sunday. I didn't mind going to church actually when I was a child. I enjoyed the singing and the dancing and the snacks that were served at Sunday school every Sunday. I didn't even mind the preaching at first until I realized how repetitive it was. Most of the time, the preaching would be about casting certain evil spirits and demons out of our lives. And at a certain point, I began to wonder just how powerful these demons and evil spirits were if we needed to cast them out once or twice every month. No one mentioned it specifically, but we all knew what we were casting out. People who disguise themselves as good people in the daytime but turn into evil spirits at night, flying out of their homes in the forms of owls and other animals to prey on innocent babies, relatives, and good people. We were talking about witches. I was terrified of witches and witchcraft in general when I was a kid. There was no good side to witchcraft. There were no Gandalfs or white magic. It was all dark and evil. I knew from a very young age how to spot a witch. No one sat me down and taught me the physical demeanor of a witch. It was simply because most of the people that I had been told practiced witchcraft all looked the same. A witch, 9 out of 10 times, is a woman. She's old. In fact, the older the witch, the more powerful she's assumed to be. She must have outlived most of her family members, especially her children. She must be living in extreme poverty. And some bonus points for qualification are the ability to talk to oneself and be nice to other people, especially to children. Witchcraft was feared where I grew up, and the accused were usually gossiped about, insulted, and in extreme cases, ostracized by their communities. I did not know, however, about the existence of witch camps and the circumstances that led to their existence. I did not know that even in the southern parts of Ghana, some people who have been accused of witchcraft are sent to prayer camps and kept there in inhumane conditions until they are cured, if they are cured at all. But southern prayer camps are a story for another day. Today, I want to talk to you about the alleged witch camps of northern Ghana and why there is a great need for organizations such as mine to work towards ending witchcraft accusations entirely. I first started this job as a volunteer. We were called the Humanist Service Corps, and we were an international volunteering program that supported local NGOs based in the northern parts of Ghana. I was 26 years old and had already begun identifying as an atheist and a humanist for a few years. I had just returned from a year abroad where I worked as a nanny, and I was kind of stagnant career wise, trying to figure out what I wanted to do next when I met Connor Robinson. He had just founded the Humanist Service Corps program and was in Ghana making final preparations towards its first cycle. He told me about the plan to support local non-profit organizations working in the northern region of Ghana that supports women that had been accused of witchcraft. Now, at this point in my life, I was at least 87% sure that there was no such thing as witchcraft or witches, especially after a pastor tried to accuse me of witchcraft. It happened on a Sunday, on a day that my mother had finally convinced me to go with her to one of the new churches that she had started attending. I the service itself was pretty usual, and I enjoyed the singing and dancing as I did when I was a kid. But when it got to the time for prayer, the pastor looked at me and asked me to come and stand in the middle of the church. He then turned to my mother and started prophesying to her. He said that I was an evil child. I was not her child. I had been sent to live with her, and I was the cause of all of her problems. He went on and on and on. My mother, to her benefit, tried to tell this pastor that I was indeed her biological child, but he did not want to be interrupted. And so this pastor asked the whole church to stretch out their hands and pray to cast out the evil spirit within me. I remember feeling so embarrassed and humiliated. I wanted the ground to open up and just swallow me. That incident alone secured about 10% of my disbelief, and the rest came from years of questioning religion and tradition. So I went to the up north with Connor and his volunteers, and going up there opened my eyes to a lot of things that I hadn't really thought about until then. In Ghana, when you think about NGOs and humanitarian work in general, you equate that to foreigners. NGOs over here are synonymous with white people who have lots of money and privilege and who come down to Africa to help poor Africans that live here. And that was what I thought as well, until I went up north and got a first hand experience of the inner workings of non-profit organizations and their projects. I realized that it didn't, in fact, take a special breed of human to work in this field, and that what it actually took was passion to help people and a lot of determination. So I realized that people from Ghana should be involved in bringing humanitarian aid to its people. It shouldn't fall on foreigners alone, and even if it does, we should be the ones leading them for a lot of obvious reasons, such as people who know and understand the culture best should be the ones leading issues that address them. I wanted to be a part of the new breed of Ghanaian who cares about doing non-profit work, not because it's a job, but because I actually care about helping people. So that value has stayed with me through the years, and motivates me to keep doing what I'm doing through the struggles that have come along the way. That's how I got involved in this field, and I never looked back. I never left, and I'm glad I did not. My first task with the program in 2015 was to go to one of their alleged witch camps here in the north and interview the women who had been accused of witchcraft and banished to live there for the rest of their lives. This witch camp, the Kukuo witch camp, was about 15 to 20 minutes drive from the town where we lived, and I would ride my motorcycle with my translator and go to the camps every Sunday. There are currently 5 alleged witch camps in the northern region. There used to be 6 of them, but one was closed down through government intervention. There's been numerous calls from the public since then for the government to shut down the remaining camps over the years. But thankfully, the government has realized that shutting down the camps will not solve the problem, but rather worsen the situation for women who are accused of witchcraft. Before the camps existed, accused women were tortured and usually killed by a mob. So the camps are a refuge from violence and death for women who are accused. Although every now and then, not every woman not every woman is lucky enough to make it to the camps. So even though those that make it to the camps are the lucky ones, life within the camps is still not great. The women that live there live in poor conditions, in extremely poor conditions, with little access to water and food. Because the women that live there are usually too old to be able to take care of themselves, their families usually send young children who are members of their families with them to live with them and assist them with daily life. There are currently over 1,000 women and over 700 children living in the 5 witch camps that are spread out throughout the northern region. The children living in these camps do not have access to formal education and spend their lives in servitude, usually unable to return back to normal society even when the relatives they came with passed away due to the stigma that is attached to living with women who have been accused of witchcraft. So, the qualifying elements to being identified as a witch are not different in the north from what I grew up knowing in the south. The women that live in the camps are usually old and vulnerable, they are poor, often illiterate, and usually lack protection from a male figure. When a woman is accused of witchcraft, if she does not confess and is able to escape being lynched by an angry mob, she is usually taken to her community's Tindana, who performs a test to determine if she's truly a witch. A Tindana is the spiritual head of a community here in the northern region. They are the ones who have the power to perform the ritual that determines whether an accused woman is guilty of witchcraft. They also have the power to perform a cleansing ritual, which is supposed to neutralize the accused woman's powers and make it possible for her to be accepted to live within the witch camps. These tests that are performed to determine a woman's guilt are usually absurd and rigged against the accused. The chances of passing are like slim to none, and women who usually go through such tests are usually sent to live in the witch camps thereafter. Each shrine has a different kind of test that is performed. One of such tests involves a tiny wooden stool about the size of your fist. The accused woman is made to sit on the stool, and the Tindana uses a large local broom made out of palm leaves to hit her from different angles continuously until she falls off the stool. Once the woman falls off the stool, she is confirmed a witch. I can't imagine a lot of women are able to pass this test. Some other shrines perform this test by slaughtering a live chicken. The position that the chicken dies in determines the woman's guilt. If the chicken dies while laying on its chest or face down, she is confirmed a witch. However, if it dies lying on its back, then she's innocent. The women who are brought to the camps after being cleansed are usually shown a hut that is theirs to live in. Depending on the circumstances that led to their arrival at the camp, a woman could move into her new home with some basic necessities such as clothes, cooking utensils, containers for fetching and storing water, and even some money for her upkeep. Or she could arrive with nothing but the clothes she's wearing and a harrowing tale of how she got there. Whenever I interviewed the women in the alleged witch camp, I usually had a set of predetermined questions that I would ask, such as how many years they've lived in the camps, their age, questions about their family, and so on. Most of the women I spoke to did not know their age, but they could talk extensively about their families. And it was only when I asked them how they came to live in the camps that the mood would change. I heard 113 different stories of misogyny and abuse. Most of them were pretty similar. Most of them involved mysterious dreams and sicknesses that were blamed on the victims. A woman I spoke to was accused of causing her co wife to be barren. Another was accused of causing a family member's poor performance in school. Another was accused of causing the electrocution and death of a young boy who died when an electric pole fell during a storm. And another was accused of causing the illness of a community member by feeding her food in her dreams. All of these women were forced to confess to their crimes through intimidation and fear of violence. All of the stories that I heard were awful, but some of them stood out to me over the years. One woman I spoke to had two sons who were both grown. This woman's husband and other family members had passed over the years from various causes, and there were whispers in her community that she had caused their deaths by stealing their souls at night to give herself long life. One day, one of her sons got sick, and he started having dreams that his mother was trying to kill him. The young man was sent to the community's tindana where he was given some herbs to cure his sickness, but the herbs did not work, so his condition continued to deteriorate. At this point, some family members had already started threatening the woman with retaliation if her son should die. When the young man's sickness became worse, his brother eventually sent him to the hospital, but unfortunately, he died not long after they got there. Before he died, though, he was diagnosed of severe malaria. Now, if you know anything about malaria, you know that the severe form of malaria can cause hallucinations and what is known as fever dreams. But the accused woman's nightmare had just begun. Her other son was convinced that their mother had killed his brother, so he led a violent attack on his mother, brought back the dead body of his brother, and locked his mother in a room with the dead body. He ordered her to revive his brother by morning or he would slit her throat. So this woman had to spend an entire night locked in a room with her son's dead body, knowing that by morning time her other son would kill her. Fortunately, somebody in the community felt sorry for her and helped her escape at dawn, where she ran to the nearest witch camp and has lived there ever since. That woman has lived in the camp for over 30 years. She's never seen anyone in her family or from her community ever since then. This woman's story especially feels worse for me as I grow, especially now that I'm a mother. My son is only a year and a half, but I know that I would be completely devastated if I was to experience what this woman did. And she was devastated. Every single of the over 100,000 women have been through a traumatic experience that most of us here cannot even begin to imagine. And the majority of them will live the rest of their lives imprisoned in the camps. They will die in the camps and be buried in the camp. And another woman will arrive to live in their huts, and the cycle will continue. How do we solve such a sensitive issue in an ethical way? As much as I may want to, I obviously cannot just tell people that witchcraft does not exist. I would not be able to achieve much by trying to tell people what they can or cannot believe in. In fact, doing that would make an already dangerous situation even more dangerous for the women living in these communities. How do we prevent future accusations? How do we stop feeding the camps and protect women from violent attacks? I asked myself these questions over the years since I started working in the North, and that is how the Humanist Action Ghana nonprofit was born. Humanist Action Ghana is a women's rights organization that focuses primarily on providing vocational training to women living in communities in the northern region of Ghana. Our program is designed to support women who live in low income, low education, and high witchcraft accusation communities. Our target population includes women that are at high risk for accusation, women who have already been accused of witchcraft, and girls who are sent to live with older relatives in the witch camps. These women are the poorest and most vulnerable members of their community. We will train them through vocational programs with the goal of ending the cycle of poverty, abuse, child marriages, and witchcraft accusations by providing the skills necessary to achieve financial independence. We have currently identified a community here in the northern region called Taha. There are over 3,076 women living in this community who are unemployed. So there are 3,076 women who are highly likely to be accused of witchcraft. Unfortunately, at the current capacity that we are, we can only train 25 women with our first cycle. Currently, there are a few NGOs working in the northern region to bring relief to women who are already living in the alleged witch camps. They work with the custodians of the camps to ensure that the women who live there are safe from further attacks from the outside communities, and they work to provide some of the basic needs of the women, and they also try to reintegrate some of them back into outside communities. While all of this is important work, but there is currently no other NGO that is working to address the problem of witchcraft accusations at its roots. We are the first and only nonprofit in Ghana that has designed a program which is aimed at ending witchcraft accusations entirely. Our training program is even more important today than it was a few months ago because the Parliament of Ghana recently proposed a bill that seeks to criminalize witchcraft accusations in Ghana. On the surface, and to a lot of people, this law would be the perfect solution to a problem that has plagued the country for years. But to those of us who are familiar with the inner workings of the witchcraft accusations problem, this solution is rather dangerous and would cause a lot of harm, especially to women living in rural communities such as Taha. We all know that criminalizing something does not stop it. If this bill passes in Parliament, and it looks like it will, the witchcraft accusations will continue, but there will be no protection for women who are accused. This bill would eliminate any possible mediation between an accused person and her accusers. So no woman would be sent to live in the witch camps. What then would happen when a woman is accused? Traditional law is paramount in rural communities such as Taha, and a lot of these communities are isolated and do not have police stations. So a person would have to travel to the next town or city to report a crime if they deem it necessary to involve the police at all. As much as I don't like their existence and practices, we do need these tindanes right now in order to protect accused women from harm. We cannot solve this problem without solving its root cause. So, the root cause is that women who are usually accused are poor and vulnerable. It is very rare for a woman who is self sufficient to be accused. That is why our program is designed to give women the skills that they need to be able to attain financial independence for themselves and their family members. We need to be able to provide the training materials for the 25 women that we've selected to be the beneficiaries of our first cycle. We need to pay our trainers and we need to rent a space for our classes. We need to provide the tools and materials and fabric and other things that are needed. We need to provide the tools and fabrics and materials that are needed to be able to implement our first cycle in Taha that would run for 18 months. We want to implement this program ethically, and we do this by running our foundation and our programs in ways that embrace and are guided by humanist values. This sets us apart from the other nonprofit organizations that operate within the northern region. There are currently lots of NGOs operating here in the northern region that are not focused on any specific projects. That is because these NGOs often rely on grant giving organizations who are always looking to fund the next big thing. These organizations are not able to maintain efficient programs that are focused on long term impacts because they are constantly designing new programs that fit whatever requirements the grant giving organizations come up with. They are focused on whatever programs bring in the most money and are designed to have quick results that they can show to their donors, which means that their program officers can prioritize long term impact and relationship building. It is often more about the health of the organization and not the health of the community and the women that they serve. It is not humanist to operate this way. We are not a big NGO, and our project does not require a lot of money, but it is designed to have long term effects, not just on the women we work with, but on the community as a whole. We want to end witchcraft accusations in northern Ghana by empowering the women who live here economically. Economically vulnerable women are targets for gender violence and abuse, and we can only do it by implementing a program that puts the women's needs first and actually has long term impacts on their lives and on their communities. To do this, we need help from the humanist community. The fact is, it is not easy raising funds for a humanist organization that is focused on ending witchcraft accusations in one of the most religious countries in the world. I need people like you who understand the urgency of the problem at hand, but also understand that the only way to solve this problem is to adopt highly ethical methods that may not seem attractive in the short term, but have the ability to drastically bring a lot of change in the long term. I want to challenge all of you here today to join me in putting our humanism into action to end the persecution of women through witchcraft accusations in northern Ghana. We need your help to put the word out there, to get more people interested in seeing what we do and in supporting us. We need donations to be able to fulfill our current fundraising goal of $30,000, which is enough to set up and fund our first cycle of training for 18 months in Taha. A lot of people have asked me over the years how I'm able to work with the women living in the camps and not fear them. I'm sure that at least a few people have even looked at me and wondered if all those years of association has affected me somehow. The truth is, what I do has the ability to impact my life in negative ways. I have tainted myself somehow by continuing to advocate for and for seeking to better the lives of women who have been discarded by society and women who could potentially have to go through the same horrors that those living in the alleged witch camps went through. But my motivation to continue doing this work, is still strong because each year that more women are banished to the camps, there is a greater need for intervention and a long lasting solution. While all of Ghana experiences gender inequality, there is a huge imbalance in the north when it comes to women's rights versus men's rights. I was lucky to be able to walk away unscathed, aside from the deep feeling of humiliation I felt when I was accused of practicing witchcraft. But a lot of women living in the North did not have that same chance or privilege. I will keep working to empower and close that gap between the men and women here so that women's voices are finally heard and they can grow into old age with dignity and with love, exactly how they've always deserved to. I hope that you can help me in this mission by donating. Every little bit counts. Thank you.